Today we will look at a plan that one of our premium Discord clients sent to us. He booked a consultation call and we looked over his plan and talked about how to improve it. To know about this person, he's been training for 8 years, quite a long time. He's a mass reader, so he has taken his time to learn certain scientific principles, and he has bought a lot of pre-made plans from different influencers, tried them out and had his experiences with that. Today we'll especially focus on the first steps in plan creation. So what are the basics, what are the fundamentals, what are the things that are extremely important, and we will solely and purely focus on those. Otherwise it would be too much for one session, and we'll have quite some of these sessions so we can go into more and more detail step by step. The thing about programming is, by itself, it's not that difficult, so to say. What is difficult is understanding how everything is connected. And that is where most people have a hard time understanding. And that was the thing that all the basics of programming I learned in less than a year while studying pharmacy on the side. But how to apply them, that took 2 to 3 years before I really understood how everything is connected. You won't learn it from this session, and I don't want you to copy paste the plan that we created. What I want you to really learn here is understanding the first steps you need to take before creating a plan. Very important is, you've already seen our seminar, our first one about basics of periodization, long-term periodization, etc. Just to have at least some kind of idea of what I will be talking about. Let's look at the plan. First of all, how it's structured and what's written down. We can see old meso and new meso. The old meso was what he was working before. The new meso is what this person has written after listening to our first seminar. Here we see half of the plan. In the next session, we'll talk about the other 2 days of how we have created it and the steps. Number 1, old plan, we have upper 1, upper 2, upper 3. We have handstand maintenance and press and flexibility. We have just a little overview of how the plan's built and a little estimate of volume per muscle group, which is all very beautiful to see. We have upper 1 on first day. We have handstand and flexibility on the second day. We have upper 2 on the third day, then 1 rest day, upper 3, handstand and flexibility. The first day will have weighted pull-ups, weighted pike push-ups, front lever rows, pseudo planche push-ups, and stomach YYs. Weighted pull-ups for 5 sets, 5 reps with 5 minutes pause in between. Weighted pike push-ups, 5, 5, 5, and the accessories for two sets, always 5 reps, 5 minutes of rest. Upper 2, exactly the same structure with less sets, less reps, same amount of rest time. Weighted pike push-ups, less sets, less reps, more rest time. Front lever row for less reps. Pseudo planche push-up, stomach YY, and upper 3. Different amount of sets, but the general structure is always the same. We have a handstand maintenance plus press flexibility day with 5 to 8 sets of free handstands, pike stretches, pike compression, pancake stretch, and straddle compressions, always for 3 reps and 60 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds, 60 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds. Here we can see the volume estimation, lats 19, rear delts 18, biceps 9, front delts 18, tricep 18, and chest 0. I would have counted them slightly different, but we can take it as it is, as a reference. We are doing, to sum it up, lots of volume for our back, some volume for our biceps, quite some volume for our front delts, quite some volume for our tricep. Chest is in there still, in weighted pike push-ups, at least some of it, and in pseudo planche push-ups, and no legs are being trained here. But After talking to this person, he's already quite heavy and quite a big guy. So that would make everything harder. After seeing this plan, my first question was, what are your actual goals? So we can slide over, and when talking about them, we talked about his goals. So his goals are one-arm pull-up, 90-degree handstand push-up, handstand on straight bar, flexibility, and maybe other skills like planche and front lever. These are the priorities. So number one is one-arm pull-up, 90-degree handstand push-up, handstand to a straight bar, flexi, and then other skills. But he actually enjoys skills training the most. But he thought he needed to focus more on the basics, and doesn't know how to bring the two together, because you find a lot about, you see all these skills people only doing skills on one side, and you see all the other information in the net, especially if you look at mass or RP. What they do, they have very similar plans like this, and you just one-on-one take it, adapt it to calisthenics. A lot of specificity gets lost here, and that is exactly what we see. We have no real technical or specific work for the actual one-arm pull-up. I asked his numbers. The weighted pull-ups, 4x3, he could do at 38 kgs, so around 40 kgs for 3 reps. His weight, if I remember correctly, is between 85 and 90 kg, somewhere there. So he's at about 50% with 3 reps for 4 sets, a bit less. So a lot of weighted work is needed to get stronger and improve before really working on a one-arm pull-up. That does mean that archers or archers with a ring on elbow height aren't possible. And that is the first thing I told him, like, one-arm pull-up, goal number 1, test this, look how it feels, look how it goes, look if you can actually work with this progression, because then you would at least, even if you still have work to do in your weighted pull-ups, start to work with more specificity towards that. Just idea number 1, what are your goals? Where do you want to go? And what exercises do you want to choose to do so? So one-arm pull-up, find a progression where you can do 1 rep without it being too hard, an at 7, something you could probably do 3 reps with, in a progression where you would do work unilaterally, and that simulates a bit more than the weighted pull-up, the one-arm pull-up movement. That is step number 1. 90-degree handstand push-up, we have a lot of front tilt work, we have weighted pike push-ups, a lot of them. 5 for 3 sets, 5 for 3 reps. From the intensity range, we're actually in a quite decent range. So 3 to 5 is quite specific and awesome to get to the handstand push-up, which is like a 1RM movement, so to say. But he can actually already do 3 handstand push-ups. In fact, after listening to our seminar, he put 3 handstand push-ups in the plan to have more specificity. Here already we see an improved version of the plan, but we'll talk about this later. He can actually, I think his max was even 9 reps free handstand push-up. And if the 90-degree handstand push-up is your goal, what you need to focus on is improving your free handstand push-ups so they're 100% consistent. Start working on deep handstand push-up. You can do that with weighted pike push-ups, but do them in full range of motion. So you learn to get stronger in that range of motion. And number 3 is, if you're ready for it, for the 90-degree, it depends on your level, do some specific work for that in case as well. Never lose that specificity. If only do weighted pike push-ups and never do handstand push-ups, you'll never reach your 90-degree handstand push-up. Besides, if you're technical beast and you have no problem at all reaching these skills without doing any specific work, which in something like a handstand push-up is honestly quite rare to see when you are learning it. Once you've learned them, you cannot train them for a year. I can do that, for example. Handstand on straight bar, this is something, depends how good your free handstand is, but I would put in specific work, belly to walls, maybe on a straight bar to get used to the feeling, or doing actually 3 attempts there, because if your handstand is very solid, and I think this person's handstand is very solid, doing it on a straight bar, it takes a lot of practice. And once you have the basics down, you have a good mobility, you have a good alignment, you have a good PPT. Honestly, everything that's in the way is learning to do it on a straight bar. And you should learn and specifically do it on a straight bar. Put the straight bar away from the wall, go in from there, so you can work on it specifically. learn how overbalancing on a straight bar will fuck you up, and get a feeling for it. Flexibility actually is in there, just once a week for 3 sets on 60 seconds. Here I told him that our preferred method is actually really working with force in the end range of motion. So doing something like 10 seconds of active pressing down into the stretch, then passively stretching for 20 seconds and switching that up constantly, so that you at the end, maybe you get around 60 seconds, you do 10 plus 20, 10 plus 20 for 3 sets. Of course, it's quite harsh as a stretch, and you need to really dose the intensity, but this way you can overload it with time, take more weight, and actually put strength into that end range of motion, which is extremely important, especially when you want to create force in these movements and you want to be strong, not only flexible. By creating a bigger range of motion in your joints, by passively, if you end up in that ROM with more weight than they're used to, your neurological system just has learned to enter that ROM. It's actually just a neurological adaptation. But he can't create strength there because he's not used to it. He needs to learn that there as well. You're gonna get hurt. And that is one big focus you always need to put in mobility when you think about skills, which usually isn't a problem if you work on the skills specifically as well. Then we have planche front lever, no work there. We have the front lever row. This person put it in there to have some variation from ring rows because they felt off. The front lever row in the L-sit, for example, is a viable horizontal pulling exercise if you're extremely advanced. It's more specific to the row itself than working on the front lever, and the person actually said he wants to learn the front lever. Here we don't really see specific work for that as well. We see some shoulder health exercises, which is perfect. We see no planche work, which was in the interest of the person as well. Other things we see, it's the same plan 3 days a week, which honestly is boring as fuck. It's nice to work with the same things over, like I didn't change my plan over the last 10 months because I was doing mostly bodybuilding, just some variations in some assistance exercises, but doing the same thing 3 times a week over and over and over again for months, aren't you bored of doing this? And he was like, yeah, I couldn't stand this plan anymore, which leads to plan hopping, changing things around constantly, which leads to no progress and bad consistency, which leads to even less progress. So number one, it needs to be something that is possible for you, available, and is fun to you. Training certain movements 3 times a week, like the weighted pull-up, can make sense, but 5 sets is, in my opinion, depending on how far away from failure you are, a lot. And the weighted pull-up isn't as technical as a movement where I feel like I need to do a lot of sets. In an accumulation phase, can make sense to make more and, for example, work on it 3 times a week. But 90% of the clients do weighted pull-ups 2 times a week, and they improve without a problem. The third time maybe is a muscle up, so they have still a pulling movement. And with some desperate cases where the progress is extremely slow, you can do a technical day in the middle where you do some extra work, especially if they have some technique flaws that are rooted deep inside and you can't get them off, and you can have variations like half from pull-ups or things like that. That already though is a variation, feels different, is a different thing to do besides weighted pull-ups without pauses, without anything. Even when doing things twice a week, often it makes sense to have one day that is maybe a bit more specific towards the competition, depending on the phase you're in, and one day that maybe has a pause at a certain point, so you focus on exactly that technique flaw that you always mistake. These are things that can fall away the closer you get to a competition, or the closer you get to your mock meet, or you want to work on your 1RM2. All the exercises 3 times a week, lots of volume for the back, lots of volume for the shoulder, but this volume is extremely unspecific for the one-arm pull-up. This volume is not extremely unspecific, but is unspecific for the handstand push-up. So we are not really working towards the goals we want to. And this is lesson number 1. Write down your goal, write down a priority list, and give yourself exercises to reach that. And usually it's worth to write down it in a form like this, like you do one-arm pull-up. Client wants to reach a one-arm pull-up. What do I test? I test his weighted pull-ups, and I test some variation of archer pull-ups, depending on his level and depending on what level he wrote down. That we have one unspecific and one specific exercise. These are all vertical pulling exercise, so I want to add horizontal assistance, which I can test if needed, and if there's space for it, I can put a vertical assistance in there. One on lat pull downs, depending on weak points. These are very weak point oriented, depending where the problems lay technically, but we can talk about that another time. 90-degree handstand push-up. Our first exercise will be the handstand push-up. Test those. See how the deep one looks like. See how the pike push-ups look like, if you enjoy working with them. Weighted here too. And preferably for ROM, we work towards the deep handstand push-up, which then goes hand in hand with the 90-degree. Of course, if he can already do a 90-degree negative, test that. But usually the deep one needs to be solid. And then here an optional assistance, depending if he's training planche, yes or no, how much volume is on the delts and where the weak points lie. This could be more anterior delt, or it could be more tricep focused. Handstand on straight bar, handstand on straight bar. Flexi we have. Test the flexi things he's doing, just change it around, probably do it 2 times a week, not everything at once, to mix it up and make everything more colorful. And regarding planche, we test 2 variations in planche, so it would be planche lean and tuck planche, for example, and in case advanced tuck, see where he is, and in the front lever, same, advanced tuck, 1 leg tuck front, voila. Beautiful. Here, horizontal assistance for weighted pull-ups goes hand in hand here, and the vertical assistance, which are the weighted pull-ups itself, plus in case if we needed something else, is here as well. As you go, the things are starting to come together and make sense. Depending on the weak points, then we can choose the assistance exercises. But already here, just looking at all the things we would test, an idea of a plan is already created, which looks more colorful, still has the basic exercises in there, and we can work on more things at the same time.